Welcome to another session of Office Hours. My name is Adrian. I am the CEO and founder of Groundhogg, and today we're going to have kind of an open season session, an Ask Me Anything session. This is a moment or a time where you can ask any questions you have about Groundhogg, our business, me personally, WordPress, life, whatever it is that you're currently having a roadblock with or just are curious about and want to know and how we would tackle that situation. You are welcome to ask, and we will provide you with the best answer we possibly can. This session is being recorded. It will be posted to YouTube as well as our Groundhogg Academy website after the fact, so don't say anything that you don't want recorded. But we're happy to answer all questions. If you have a question, what I want you to do is I want you to just go ahead into the chat. We do have a chat on this, and I am monitoring it, as well as our new support specialist, which I'm going to feature in a moment. So please, if you have any questions at any point and you want to get an answer to a burning question that you have, go ahead and type out that comment in the chat. I have it on my right-hand side screen here, so if you see me constantly diverting my attention from the camera, it's because I'm having a look at that chat waiting for questions to come in. So I want to welcome Jessie Brown to our team. She is going to be our brand new rockstar support specialist. Jessie is here to help you answer burning questions on chat, tickets, docs, as well as moderating the Facebook support group. So I just want everybody on the call to type into the chat and say welcome Jessie, and just give her a big hand. She is going to really just help us knock it out of the park in terms of continuing to deliver stellar support and expert help. So please just take a moment and welcome Jessie to our team. And I'm just super excited to have her. She's going to be part-time. She's going to be working 3 days a week. So make sure that you look out for her comments and her contributions in the group and in chat, as well in support. If you are in the group and you need help from Jessie specifically, then please feel free to welcome or to tag Jessie to get her attention. You can tag at Jessie Brown in the Facebook group in order to reach out to her. Next. I also have to give thanks to Will Middleton, who some of you may know from the Lifter LMS community. He's been helping us get back on track with delivering stellar education in terms of courses. He has been helping us record a few new courses, which will be coming out soon, hopefully. And his Facebook header image for his profile was just too awesome not to include. You can see him there. You can follow Will and his journey and all of his other educational material at wpcourseguide.com. So thank you, and big thanks to Will. In other news, we are a new Stripe verified partner. What does this mean? This means that Stripe has acknowledged us and our integration, and we can, it comes with a few perks, but really it's just a nice badge that we get to stick on the website, but it's exciting nonetheless. Our integration, our really simple payments extension was looked over by Stripe and given the stamp of approval, as it were. So if you're looking for a solid and simple payment solution, I would highly recommend that you go check out Really Simple Payments and start using it in order to create really quick and really user-friendly order forms. All right, so let's jump into it. This is an Ask Me Anything session, a Q&A session fully. There's no topic for today, mostly because we couldn't really think of one ahead of time. So hopefully we'll have a nice topic next week. But regardless, this is the point where I get to single-handedly, or single-mindedly rather, answer your burning questions. So we have one right at the top here from Grant Kantsios, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, Grant, so you can let me know if I am or not. He's asking, what is the best email setup for multi-site, mainly for subsites? I've been testing the AWS SES extension and Sendgrid, but the subsites and their domains I haven't completely figured out yet. So there's a couple ways to do SES. We're actually working on better compatibility for WaaS type stuff and multi-sites for the SES extension, where you can assign domains in SES to specific subsites, although that's not available yet because it's currently in testing and development still. The best way that we've seen people use SES and multi-site right now is if they have a more hands-on approach. It's not fully automated, but you'd want to prevent sub-users from actually accessing your SES settings, since they're set globally and the keys are publicly accessible. You don't want that, so you want to essentially revoke permissions for monitoring SES from subsets. That's the first thing that you're going to want to do. The second thing that you're going to need to do is, if someone is adding a custom mapped domain, then you will need to go through the process of providing them with the correct records and maybe some documentation on that process as well. Sendgrid is a little bit easier to set up for multi-site because it doesn't require domain authentication to work. Domain authentication is optional, and we actually have the same kind of Sendgrid setup with optional domain authentication for our Mailhawk service. So we actually have a specific WaaS plan for Mailhawk, which means that you can just set it up network-wide and requires very little action on part of your end user, and really the only action required is on part of yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to provide you with this link so you can check it out. But beyond that, Grant, I have been informed that we have this awesome training for WaaS, the WaaS community, at WaaS Camp, brought to you by WaaS Pro Michael Short. I'm sure you're familiar with him, and he's just a super brilliant and smart guy. And they have some courses for Groundhog, I believe, as well as how to set up email delivery using the various different sending methods. Rather, I think Jonathan Power put it together, and Jonathan Power is a bit of a super user in the Groundhog community. So I would go ahead and check out WaaS Camp, and they do a whole lot more than just Groundhog training, but it's basically like all aspects of your WaaS that you could possibly need help with, they've got, including setting up Groundhog as well. So I'd recommend going and checking out WaaS Camp, Grant. Grant's saying, for the mapped domains, would the emails come from the main domain or the mapped domains? In SES, hopefully, depending on the way that you set it up, it would come from the mapped domains. That's kind of up to you and how you want to set up. It really depends on what kind of WaaS it is and what kind of service it is as well. Again, you might actually need to, depending on your use case, you might need to wait until our updated SES extension comes out, which has better multi-site support. So more on that in the future. So I would actually just keep my ear to the ground and watch out for that, Grant. Hopefully that answers your question in some way. Kurt asks, do you have a link to access the funnel templates without sweeping them off the lessons in the Groundhog training? I feel much more confident using your templates than my own brain. So I think what you're talking about is if we provide funnel templates for the funnels that we train on in the Groundhog Academy, and the answer to that question is yes, and they're actually just linked in the lessons themselves. So rather than requiring you to recreate them. So if I go to academy.groundhog.io and I want to go grab like the lead magnet download funnel that we use in our official Quick Start course, I believe that it's just linked in there. Or not, because it's using the main funnel template. So disregard that. Let's go to the other course though, which is our Course Creators Essentials. And if you're looking for some of the LMS templates, for example, for Lifter and stuff, then you can actually download those templates from here as well. So if we go to set up a free lesson lead magnet, there's actually underneath the video a link for you to download the funnel template so you can import it in your site. And there's actually instructions here as well on how to import it into your installation. Some nice video instructions there, or some image instructions rather there. So Kurt, if you're looking to not have to recreate the funnel, but just import them, then this is how I would go about doing that. Just go to the course. All of our courses, except for the Certified Partner one, are free to enroll. So you can go ahead and just in there, download the relevant funnel that you need and go ahead and import that into your installation. Kurt, please let me know if that answers your question. If not, go ahead and let me know and I'll follow up with you. Yeah, Kurt. So Kurt says he imports them off the lessons. No, we don't really have a library. The only library that we really have is the one that you see when you click add a new funnel, and there's a bunch of ones that you get to choose from. So what I would do is for now import them or just download them off of the Academy site. Hopefully we'll get around to adding all of these templates to our kind of main display in the add funnel area eventually. It's not of top of mind right now, but that is a good recommendation, at least for us to do at some point. Michael asks, I'm in INOD jail clearing old files. Is there a special way to treat Groundhog cache or log files? So for anyone who doesn't know what an INOD is, it's really techy and you don't really need to understand it, but essentially INODs are representative of the number of files that you have in a Linux installation. They're the way that Linux file storage works, and the way that they're linked in like folders and subfolders, etc. So what can happen if you're not careful is if you import tons and tons and tons of files into WordPress, you can end up exponentially increasing the number of inodes that your website is using. And I had a great article explaining this a little bit, and hopefully I can find it again. Inodes, WordPress, I think it was Elegant Themes that wrote it. There we go. I'm going to link this article to kind of just give everybody a rundown, but essentially they're just handled the way that, or they're represented the way that files are linked. So you have disk space and then you have inodes. Inodes are representative of kind of like 2 times the number of files that you have. One of the issues with WordPress is depending on the theme that you use, if you upload an image, WordPress actually could end up uploading 12 copies of that image for different resized formats. So you'd have like your post thumbnail, and then you'd have the small, then the medium, then the large, and each of those takes up an inode because it's a pointer to a link to a folder to somewhere. The question here specifically is if you have a lot of these, and usually it's caused by having a ton of images, or maybe you have a caching plugin, or you have a backup plugin or something like that. Those create lots of files. The question here is there any specific files in Groundhog that you should be wary of deleting because you remove inodes or lessen your inode usage by deleting old files? The answer to that is there's not really any specific Groundhog files that you need to be wary of. Groundhog has a file structure or its own folder that it creates in the WP Uploads folder, and maybe I can show that to you somehow. FTP. Let's see if we can open up our FTP client and I can show you that process a little bit. Go ahead and change the window here. Okay, so in your kind of WordPress file system where your WP config file is, you go to WP content and then you go to plugins, and that's where you're going to find all of your plugin files. Under no circumstances should you delete any of these files ever, or anything in these files. If you do, your site will break and it will not be fun, and I promise you it will be a painful experience. So do not delete or remove anything inside of the plugins folder in WP content. What you can do, though, without probably causing too much harm to your site, is delete things in the uploads folder. Now, when Groundhog is created, it creates an upload folder, or a subfolder in the uploads folder, and that's just called Groundhog. And this is where Groundhog will store stuff like CSV export files, CSV import files, contact files. So if you upload something to the contact file box, that actually gets uploaded to a subfolder in here as well, and that's where it's stored. So that's the kind of thing that happens in this file. You can delete this whole file without fear of much retribution from Groundhog and without breaking your site. However, there are a few things to know. I wouldn't recommend deleting the Groundhog root folder. You can safely delete anything in here except for this one file called htaccess. Now, what the htaccess file does in here is it prevents this folder from being publicly accessible by outside users. So the uploads folder by default is publicly accessible, which means if you go to any of the image files here, those are publicly accessible, which is why they can be inserted into any content on a page, but we don't want people to be able to download CSV files unless they're logged in. So that is why this htaccess file is here. This will prevent any public access that's not logged in as an administrator or someone with permissions from being able to download anything. So super important that you leave this file be, but regardless of that, you should not have to deal with anything out of the ordinary. Groundhog only creates and adds new files whenever you import a new CSV file, you export a contact list, because we store all of those exports. So if you just want to delete some storage, you can delete those export files, or if you upload files to a contact file box. Otherwise, this system will not be used. If you have the backup and restore plugin installed, it will also use this folder to restore backups and whatnot, but that's only if you have the backup and restore plugin. That's only if you're manually creating backups of Groundhog. So all in all, you should not have to worry too much about Groundhog's uses of the INODs. And this has been a very technical explanation, but hopefully that provides a little bit of insight and answers your question, Michael, to some degree. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question, Michael. And if it doesn't, please feel free to follow up, and I will do my best to provide a more comprehensive answer. Short answer is you don't really need to do anything. So I had Jessie compile some questions that were just from the Facebook group, and you can actually see her typing away there. So thank you, Jessie, you're a rock star. Let's talk about some of the questions that just came up in the group. So number one, is it possible to send the calendar appointment Zoom link in a text reminder or a link to the appointment where the Zoom link might be? Let's think about that for a moment. I'm not an expert on our own calendar integration because I didn't build it, and I don't actually use it for myself because we have a Calendly account and it's too painful to change all of the Calendly links everywhere, so that's what we still use. So maybe what I will do is I'm going to just quickly take a pass on this one because I don't know. But let's go ahead and talk about this one. What are the pros and cons of installing Groundhog on a subdomain versus the main domain? Will it complicate things, or is it straightforward? So this is actually a question that we get a significant amount. And the question is subdomain or main domain? So subdomain, you are probably all familiar with, or having it in a subfolder. That's when you would have something like maybe like groundhog.mydomain.com, or if you had something like mydomain.com/groundhog, if you were to have it in something like a subfolder. So these are two questions that we actually get a lot, because one of the questions or one of the concerns is that Groundhog is going to be a significant draw on resources and it's going to like decrease site speed. So they want to put it on a subdomain where the idea is it wouldn't have as much of an effect on kind of like the site overall. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to this kind of configuration. So let's move out of the way here. Oh. So let's talk about some advantages of having a subdomain. So the first advantage is just that you're going to keep it clean, and this may or may not be important to you. We have over like 100 plugins active on our main Groundhog installation, which may seem like a lot, but they all serve their function and specific purpose. But if you're a fan of like keeping clean WordPress, then it might make sense to have a sub-site installation for Groundhog. Another advantage is storage. So if storage is a concern, Groundhog does take up database space by creating custom tables with files if you do exports and imports. And it does take up server resources by executing those events. So it does take up server resources, and hopefully that's legible. I can't really fix it right now unless I uninstall and reinstall my drivers. But those are really kind of like the three main things. But the thing about storage and resources is that these are like nominal savings. These are not going to be like huge savings, and in most cases not worth the hassle of setting up a sub-site for Groundhog. So let's talk about some of the disadvantages. So here are some of the disadvantages. Disadvantages include lack of integration. Groundhog has a lot of integrations with other WordPress plugins. For example, forms or LMS or some other platform, e-commerce like WooCommerce, for example. If you decide to install Groundhog on a subsite, which is not on the main site with the rest of those plugins, then you're going to lose the ability to have that close-knit integration. And that's no fun. So we're going to give that a sad face because that's not good. Next is you're going to just, it's just going to be more difficult to configure overall with figuring out how to get information into Groundhog. I mean, we have our embeddable web forms as well as webhooks and other features. However, those are more complicated and require more attention to detail versus just copying a web form shortcode and then shoving that on your site somewhere. So it's a little bit more difficult to set up. Again, the savings in terms of resources are so nominal that you'll end up spending more for the additional hosting of an additional site than you would otherwise just having everything on the same site and upgrading the hosting plan in the first place to something that's a little bit more robust. So the savings of having two sites, because it's really the question is, do you want one big site versus two small sites? And really, this is actually going to end up costing more in the long run than your kind of just like your one big site, which is what we actually have internally for our own business. Is we have our one big site, which is Groundhog. We do have a sub-site, which is Academy, but that's a little bit of a different use case than what most people ask when they ask about this particular scenario. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense to people who are asking the question, should I install Groundhog on a sub-site? The answer is you could, but the savings don't really outweigh, or the savings do not outweigh the benefits of having it on your main site. So hopefully this provides a little bit of context and a little bit of explanation and answers anybody who has that question. Someone asked that what the add to calendar link does in their admins. So for those of you who might not be aware, we introduced a little freebie tool called add to calendar. There we go. Nope, that's not the right window. There we go. So someone asked what the little add to calendar link is showing up under the tools section of their Groundhog installation. So if you have Groundhog installed, which I do here, I don't have the helper installed, so I'm just going to quickly go activate that. Where is the helper function? It's not actually there. So I'm going to need to install it quickly. We have this great thing called the extension manager or the Groundhog helper, depending on where you found it. You can install this and you can set your license key in it globally, and it will manage the license for all of your Groundhog extensions, as well as provide one-click install for all of your extensions that you have access to as well. So it's really super helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. Let's go ahead and activate it. And now we should be able to see extensions. We have to give it a license key. There we go. So we have this extension called Add to Calendar, and the question is, what does this do? So I'm going to go ahead and install and activate it. There we go. And what it should have done is added a new area under our Tools tab called Add to Calendar. If I go ahead and click on Add to Calendar, it's going to show me this form. Now what this does is it allows you to create Add to Calendar links for Google Calendar. So if most people use Google Calendar, I use it personally, and I live and die by my calendar. And I oftentimes, if you click any of the office hours links in emails and you get brought to the Google Calendar and automatically adds the event to your calendar, this is the tool that does that. So if I wanted to share an event called, let's say, my special event, and my computer is just having a not so good, very bad day. There we go. And we want it to be from, let's say, tomorrow at 9, from tomorrow to 10. Give it a description. Your event location. So this could be a link, it could be a physical place. I'm just gonna put Facebook group, and the specific link text that you want. So you could say add to calendar, for example, and then if you click generate, what that's gonna do is that's going to generate different links that you can embed. So there's a short code if you're embedding it on a WordPress page. There's the HTML link, which you'll be able to embed in an HTML page or an HTML area, or there's just the raw link itself. And if I go ahead and I paste this into the browser, I get brought to the Google Calendar, where I can then go ahead and add this event to my calendar by clicking that save button. So that is what the add to calendar tool does. It's not integrated with Groundhogg anyway, although you can use any of these methods in a Groundhogg email. So it makes it popular for sending out event invites. That is certainly an option for you. This is a free extension. You do not need a plan to download it. It is one of the only free extensions that we actually offer. And it's just a really neat tool for making it really easy. We gave this out and added this to the store, I think on Valentine's Day, to just show a little bit of love to our community. And so it's there for you if you would like to use it. We have a question from Andrew Zimble. Andrew asks, are you able to do newsletters with photographs now? You've always been able to add photos to newsletters, especially if you're using the Pro email editor, or the advanced email editor rather. So if I go ahead and click Save Changes, Emails, Add New. Let's go grab a Pro template. We actually have a newsletter template here. Start writing. I can go ahead and add as many images to the newsletter as I want. Let's go ahead and upload an image. I don't have any uploaded right now, so let's go upload one. Let's just send an announcement that we're now a Stripe verified partner. So we're gonna go ahead and just add that image because it's the first one that came up. And I can go ahead and add that to as many places as I want. So yes, you are able to add images to newsletters. And if you're using the Pro email, or sorry, the simple email editor rather, you can still add images. There's nothing preventing you from doing so. You just have to do it the old-fashioned way using the Add Media button. Hopefully that answers your question, Andrew. Ken Weissner asks, is there a way to offload processing to a worker server aside from the production server? Not that I'm familiar with. I mean, what we do is we use a cron job to access the cron, and we use an external service for that. We use cronjob.org. And what that does is that'll send a request to our GH-cron file every once in a while and pick up any events and send out any emails that need to be sent. I don't know if there's actually a way. I'm not a server techie guy by any stretch of the imagination, so I don't know if there's a way to like offload the resources to an external worker itself, because I mean it uses like WordPress's internal system in order to process all of those events. So I'd be curious if you go down like a deep dive into research on this. I'd love to hear from you and to see what your results are, but I'm not familiar with offloading that process besides using cronjob.org. One recommendation that we do have to people who are doing like significant volume in terms of emails and other stuff is we have a tab called Advanced Cron Setup. And the Advanced Cron Setup allows you to create a specific cron file separate from the internal WP cron system. Now what this does is if you're running WooCommerce, like Automate Woo or Lifter LMS or LearnDash or any of that other stuff, all of those platforms use the internal WP cron system. And Groundhogg will probably use it more than they do. So what you don't want is Groundhogg interfering with any cron system that's going on with other plugins that you have installed on WordPress. So the unique solution that we have for that is you can actually decouple Groundhog from the internal WP cron system, give it its own system, and then set a specific cron job for Groundhog specifically so it doesn't interfere with anything, and breaking changes in other plugins won't interfere with your Groundhog. So that's super awesome. The way you do that is by going to your advanced cron tab, installing what we call the ghcron.php file, and then uncoupling Groundhog from the WP cron system and creating an external cron job to that new file that you just installed. We have documentation on this on the site, and I mean, in the advanced cron setup, all of the instructions and documentation that you're really going to need is actually on this page itself. So Ken, I would recommend that if you're concerned about volume and you're concerned about resources and processes, go ahead and install the advanced cron setup file, and you should be pretty good to go. We do at Groundhog what I would consider significant volume. It's not like we don't do a lot of emailing. We send probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 emails a month, which to some people is not a lot, but it's sizable, and it's probably representative of the majority of our audience as well. If you're in that range, our hosting bill for all of our website properties, so not just Groundhog, but all of our website properties, which is significant, there's some that you probably don't even know about, is only like $100 a month on scaled hosting, on Google Cloud hosting. So really, it doesn't take a lot of resources, and I wouldn't concern yourself too much about really going to the nitty-gritty and getting different service workers and whatnot to process events. Just my thoughts on the subject matter. Brian Walters asks, the Add to Calendar add-on is cool. Is there a way to integrate it into the scheduling extension so users can click the link to add their appointment they just scheduled? I believe that's on the feature request list, Brian. And should be slated for development in the near future. But I don't think we currently have that going on at the moment. But it's something that is being worked on, or at least in the queue for development, Brian. So hopefully that answers the question for now. Jessie is posting a question that we get a lot. Can you pick up posts automatically like all the posts created last week? Unfortunately, no, we don't have a tool for that yet. Also a very popular feature request, but not something that we have at the moment, I'm afraid to say. Hopefully it's something that we'll be able to develop in the future. But what we prefer to do is, from a personal perspective, I just prefer to send out personalized emails with specific intent rather than just blasting out emails saying, here are all the blog posts that we have recently. I prefer to send specific emails like, if you're looking to solve this problem, here's the blog post I would recommend for you to go do that. You've probably seen me send emails like that in the past, and I find that has a much better response rate than kind of just sending out a generic email with all of the blog posts that are written. I suppose it depends on the niche that you're in. If you're in like a business niche, I find that you should probably create your blogs with intent. If you're in something like where you're just like a blog and you're blogging a lot, then it's something that might be a little bit not as necessary. In any case, it's not something that we currently offer, unfortunately. But it is in the feature request list and is slated for development eventually. We'll get there when we get there, I suppose. Ken Weisner has a follow-up question. Are the individual emails getting generated in WordPress or through API with a partner? Everything that happens in Groundhog happens in WordPress. There is literally zero SaaS component of Groundhog. So all of the emails are generated using internal tools and structures within WordPress. Now, how those emails are sent is a little bit of a different matter. So all emails are sent via what you should have as an SMTP service. We have a few to choose from. So you should absolutely be using an SMTP service to deliver email. The email is generated in WordPress, but then sent via an API or an SMTP delivery partner, which you get to choose which one you want to work with. So Mailhawk is a service that we actually built. So that's our default recommendation. I highly recommend you go use it. It has an integration with Groundhogg specifically and has like bounce feedbacks and stuff like that. So it's a great tool to use, and it's pretty cost effective. There's also Elastic Emails, Sendgrid, generic SMTP if you want to use your own SMTP service, or you can also look at the Amazon integration. All of these are available to you to use and create that sort of third-party sender connection. Hopefully that answers the question. Ken, if that doesn't answer your question, please do let me know. So there's a question here. When I resend a broadcast email using our resend to unopened tool, is there somewhere that I could see that it went out? So for those of you who are not familiar, Groundhogg has a tool in the advanced features extension called resend to unopened. So here I have a broadcast. It was sent to one person, but they didn't open it. So what I can actually do is I can click resend to unopened, and what this will do is it will allow me to schedule a time to resend this email to anybody that did not open it in the first place. So let's go ahead and do that. I want to send this email to everybody tomorrow. Go ahead and click that reschedule button. It'll bring me to the preview page. I can confirm that one person will receive this email. I can preview it. I can do anything else that I need to, and then I can go ahead and I can click send to that one contact. Boom, there we go. And we can see that that's scheduled. So that actually gets scheduled as a new broadcast. So when this broadcast gets sent, you are going to see this show up in the sent area, and you'll be able to view the report as a separate broadcast item and not compared to the original broadcast that was sent. So to, I think Stacy is the one who asked that question. So Stacy, if you see this, that is where you will see the new broadcast reporting available. Jessie says, how do I know if the feature I'm requesting is brand new or already in the pipeline? We don't currently make feature requests public. We used to, but we found that it wasn't a great system. So at the moment, we just have our feature request form. Now, we can, if you ask us, we'll tell you if it's already in there, but really the best thing that you should do is just re-request it, because that shows us that it's really popular and that it's, the more requests that a specific feature gets, the more likely that we are to actually implement it, because we know that it'll actually help multiple people. So, when in doubt, just request the feature. If you've already requested it, you don't need to request it again, but it shows us that multiple people are asking for this. If you'd rather not and you just want to ask us, then you can go ahead and just send us a message and ask, was this requested? And we'll give you a yes or no answer. But in any case, just re-request it and that'll let us know that you want it. Ken Weisner asks, we're looking at WaaS setups, so that's why I'm wondering about capacity. There's recommended hosting providers for WaaS setups that you'll learn about from the WaaS Camp and WaaS Pro people. They'll give you all of the information that you need in order to create an effective and scalable WaaS. I'm not necessarily the best authority on WaaS because I don't run one, but I would start with asking and talking to the WaaS people, because that's really, really, really where they excel. Anyone like Michael Short, Jonathan Power, etc. Jonathan Denwood asked, does Groundhogg integrate well with Metorik? So not necessarily. Metorik is an insight and reporting tool for WooCommerce. So, and it's a really powerful one too. It'll give you all of like the churn reports and the revenue reports and the exports, and really just give you super granular details about your WooCommerce store, and it's really cool. They also have unique pricing. They do pricing based on orders per month, which I thought was kind of neat. So that's an interesting way to do pricing, but that's just from a business and pricing standpoint. But from a feature standpoint, it's really focused on reporting for WooCommerce. Now, we don't want you to have to go out to a third party and purchase external reporting. That would not be great. So we have a pretty robust reporting center built into Groundhogg itself, which should be able to give you all of the granular details that you're possibly going to need. We also include a WooCommerce chart. If you have the WooCommerce reporting or WooCommerce installed with the WooCommerce extension, there is a WooCommerce tab here that you'll be able to open, and that will give you revenue breakdown by email, by funnel, by status, and etc. to show you where you're making your money in terms of your marketing and your email marketing and CRM actions. So while we do not have an integration with Metorik, maybe they'll add an integration for us. That would be cool. But rely on Groundhogg's reporting center for now, and we don't plan on creating an integration for Metorik because they don't have a public API that I'm aware of. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Jonathan. All right, we're coming up to the end of the hour here. It's currently 3:52, and we generally like to keep these sessions under an hour. We had a fairly busy session, lots of questions, lots of explaining. So it's good that we were able to kind of answer everybody's questions and take up the whole hour. Start closing up. If you need additional help beyond the scope of this call, and for any reason that your question wasn't answered, there are additional resources for you to get help. You can go to our academy.groundhogg.io site, where we're going to be adding more courses soon with the help of Phil Middleton. If you need implementation help, you'd rather sit back, relax, and let someone else do the hard work, you can become a certified partner. We have a directory for that. You can go to our certified partner directory and find someone in your location or just someone that matches your niche and your core values. You can earn commissions by sharing Groundhogg with colleagues and friends and other business acquaintances. You should absolutely become an affiliate, register to become an affiliate. We'll give you 10% recurring commissions every year, as long as anybody who signs up through your link subscribes to Groundhogg. So that is very, very, very generous. If you're not following us on all the appropriate social channels, you absolutely should be. You can follow us at GroundhoggWP on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. If you have yet to leave a 5-star review, reviews allow us to get more customers, which means more development funds to throw around and create better tools that you want and appreciate and can use to launch, grow, and scale your business. So please take the 3 minutes at the end of this call to pop on over to our WordPress repo listing and leave a 5-star review. If you have any additional questions that were not answered during this call, you can leave a comment on the thread. Jessie is standing by to continually monitor comments. You can also post in the Facebook group, message our live chat, reach out to us on Twitter, or email us info@groundhogg.io. I want to thank everybody for coming today and spending the last hour with me. I appreciate it. Next office hours session will be next week, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, everybody. I hope you learned something during this session. I hope you got your answers, hope you got your questions answered, and everybody have a wonderful day.